Hello and welcome to this Stew with JT Brew. I'm JT along with Commissioner Breeze. Joining me tonight, we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions football team. What do we expect out of these guys? Where they're going? What can this rookie class do? It's going to be a fun one. Stick with us here. You're now in the stew.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping brew, sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Hello and welcome to the Stew with JT Brew. Check out my guy Chase Baby at Chase Baby Bandcamp for all that music. Great intro song he put together for me. So jump on there, check out some of his original music. And I want to thank Commissioner Breeze for coming on today to talk about the Detroit Lions. How you doing?
I'm good, JT. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a franchise that's really struggled over the years, but there's finally some light at the end of the tunnel as a Lions fan. There's excitement in the air. Got to feel good about coming in this season that people think they got a shot. What do you think?
Yeah, like you said, it's definitely an exciting time to be a Lions fan. Ever since Brad Holmes came in, heading into the 2021 season, he's really made some good moves to put the team in a position where they are right now. All starting off with the Matthew Stafford trade for Jared Goff. At the time, it was kind of hard for us to see Matthew Stafford go because of what he meant to the Lions and how long he'd been with us as our franchise player. But we kind of was at a crossroad. I think the change of scenery was best for both Stafford and the Lions. Stafford won a Super Bowl out of it. The Lions got, a couple of first-round draft picks out of it. And now they're in a position now heading into this season where they are the favorites to win the division. So I'm definitely hoping that the momentum continues with the team, and hopefully we can see the playoffs for the first time in, I think, 6-7 years. So I'm definitely here for the ride.
Yeah, that's good. Let's get into the rookies. Talking about making the Stafford trade, getting those draft picks is something they've kind of been building, and then 2 first-round picks this year. Let's talk about the draft a little bit. Really shocking some people when they went number 12, running back Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, and then backed it up with number 18 going Jack Campbell out of Iowa. I saw an article the other day that said, usually 17, 18, 19 guys got first-round grades on them. The Lions staff said, hey, we only had about 14 guys with a first-round grade. So we didn't do any crazy jumping up or down. We looked at the guys we graded first round. We looked at those 14 and we said who got to us, and we kind of jumped in from there. And that's how they ended up taking those guys. Kind of what did you think as a Lions fan? Is obviously some really talented players. The biggest knock on the Lions, did they go too high? Did they draft these guys too high? Could they got them later and got better value out of them? Kind of what are you thinking about what happened there, especially in the first round of the draft?
I mean, looking back in hindsight, anybody can say, hey, the guys that we took in the first round, maybe they could have won the second round. But in actuality, when you're in them draft rooms and you're looking at the player boards, if you don't get your guys and you end up missing out on them, you can set the franchise back 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So I actually am okay with the line and Brad Holmes, taking Gibbs and Jack Campbell in the first round, because that told me they want players who can come in and contribute right now versus waiting a year or two to see what they got in these players. So it didn't get a lot of it got mixed reviews around, the league and around football fans in general. But overall, I think that, if they're moving along with their vision of being a division contender, this is the right move that they need to make to put them in a position to compete each and every Sunday.
Yeah, I like the move. I think sometimes people get so obsessed with value and where a guy should go. And I like to like what you said. If you really like those guys and those are your guys, do you really want to be messing around thinking, oh, can I get the exact perfect value for them? And I wait and I try to get them a little later, or I trade back hoping they're still going to be there, and then you miss out on them. To me, that's the worst thing. If you know you want a guy and you play that game of trying to maximize the value, which of course everybody wants to do, but then you miss out on the guys you actually want. I think that's worse off, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is why the GMs, they get paid the money they get paid, because they have to be strategic when they forecast and, plan moves like that, because they're seeing things that the normal casual fan, you and I, we may not see right at the surface, but you hear about stuff like after the draft, you had like a couple of teams, had we not taken Jahmyr Gibbs where he went, would have taken him a few picks later. So that's why I kind of said, back in hindsight, it's easy to say we could have got him later, but we'll never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jack Campbell's one of those guys, you look at him and Gibbs. If you look at 10 years ago, 15 years ago, nobody's saying either of these guys are a reach in the first round. It's just that people are kind of down on running back value. They're down on inside linebacker value. And so, again, teams are kind of ripping because like, oh, you don't need to spend that much draft capital on those positions. But you went and got, which many people consider Gibbs the second best running back by far in this draft, behind Bijan Robinson, who, of course, everybody was ripping the Falcons for taking Bijan in the top 10, looking at that. And when he went in the top 10, that had to move Gibbs up everyone's board, knowing that Bijan wasn't going to drop into the teens, which meant Gibbs wasn't going to get into the 20s like a lot of people had thought maybe. And then Campbell, a guy that most people had clear cut the number one inside linebacker in this group. Now, people, again, down on the value of inside linebacker, but there seemed like a pretty big gap between him and the next best guy at inside linebacker. And if you looked at the Lions last year, that was one of the positions they really needed. They needed inside linebacker bad. And so I actually didn't feel like it was that big of a reach, especially for them. There was all kinds of cornerbacks on the board, but they actually had signed a bunch of guys in the offseason, Cameron Sutton, Johnson Gardner. So it seemed like that was a better spot to go, especially with their edge rushers they already had on the team. The biggest eyesore, it seemed like to me, was that middle linebacker spot.
Yeah, definitely. It was a reason why, last couple of years, so many teams was able to run the ball effectively against us, because we couldn't tackle well. And that was primarily a responsibility of the linebackers, the middle of the defense. And, Brad Holmes identified that and said, you know what, this might not be a popular pick to the consensus, but I'm going to give my guy at pick 18 and Jack Campbell. So, again, I like the pick. It just signals to me like this regime, they got a plan. They know what they're doing. They know where they want to go. And I'm on board with it.
Let's jump into the second round, where I actually thought, now we want to talk about value. I actually thought they got some really good value in the second round. 34th pick, they got tight end Sam Laporta out of Iowa. A lot of people, he, depending on whose board you looked at, a lot of people ended up having him as their number one tight end, depending on what you were looking for in a really talented tight end group. I liked all the guys in the top 5. I think are really good players. I'm excited to see a lot of them play. And then they went and got defensive back Brian Branch from Alabama at the number 45 pick in the second round. And if you're looking at pre-draft rankings, almost everyone had him as the top DB, safety / nickel. Obviously, a lot of really talented cornerbacks on the list, but almost everyone had him. And again, people are a little bit down on the safeties, not saying you should draft them as high, and they went out and got him. So, you look at it, in the first 2 rounds, the Lions technically, just because people don't love those positions, doesn't mean you don't need them. It doesn't mean you don't still have to have them on the team. They went and got arguably the number one player at 3 of those 4 positions and the number 2 guy at running back behind everybody's favorite Bijan. So, I mean, you got the top of the heap in those first 4 picks.
Yeah, that honestly, when we got into day 2, round 2 of the NFL draft, the fact that Brian Branch was on the board, I was very surprised. And then he just kept dropping and dropping and dropping. I'm like, wait a minute. Because I was saying to myself internally as a fan, nah, we ain't got a shot at him. So the fact when I heard his name get called, I was ecstatic because that was by far my favorite pick in the draft for our team and where we got him, because what he can do on the field, he's going to present a lot of value. He's very versatile. He can play inside, he can play outside, he can play deep. And the beautiful thing about it is we don't got to throw him out there right away because we got CJ Gardner, in the backfield with Tracy Walker, who's going to be our starters. We can kind of just throw some in there on certain packages, or, in case somebody get hurt, of course he'll have a bigger role then, but we ain't got to necessarily throw him in right away, so he can really learn and get a feel of the pro game, as he transitioned from college. So again, I was ecstatic with that pick, and next year I think we're going to really see what Brian Branch is all about.
I was super jealous of that pick. I have to be honest. As a Steelers and a Colts fan, I wanted both of them to take him. I was looking at him at like late first round. I was like, I thought he was going to go in there. When he started slipping the second round, I was like, man, maybe the Steelers or the Colts could jump up and grab him here. And then when he got the Lions, I was like, that's just a great pick. I was like, man, they're just taking the top guy at every position. And we've seen Alabama secondary players the last couple of years have come in and had really, really good pro careers. And like I said, the versatility of Branch, I think, is the thing. People saw, the S next to his name as a safety, but I think he can play free safety, he can play strong safety, he can play that nickel corner. I mean, I just think you can move him all around. I mean, you go dime packages, he could technically probably be your middle linebacker in dime coverage. I mean, so I just think that's a huge steal for them. And then Laporta out of Iowa, I mean, they've been a tight end factory the last couple of years. Everybody that's come out of there has been really good. And, depending on, Kincaid went in the first round. You had Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. He was right in that mix with those guys. And some people thought he might have been actually the best overall guy as far as receiving ability plus blocking ability. He had a little bit of both. And he just feels like a guy that's going to fit in. And after they traded TJ Hawkinson away, you kind of were like, what's the plan here? I think he's a great replacement for TJ, another Iowa guy, TJ Hawkinson, filling for him once they made the trade to get him to the Vikings.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm really trying to contain my excitement, for Sam Laporta at a certain level, because I know rookie tight ends usually take time to develop and adjust to the pro game. But from what I've seen in off-season, camp and OTAs, Sam Laporta looks every bit as good as advertised what people are saying about him, man. If we see any of that translate early on in the season, it's going to be a rush on the waiver wire from him after week 1, because, J-Mo, he's out for the first 6 weeks, so somebody else going to have to step up besides Amon-Ra St. Brown in the receiving game, and I think Sam Laporta is that guy. I love the fact that he's so fluid in his route running. He looks crisp, and the way he moves, his body control, and I just love the way he fights for the yards after contact when he have the ball in his hands. So I'm really excited about what Sam Laporta going to bring to the field this season.
Yeah, our buddy John McGlynn just jumping on, saying, look at these two studs brewing it up. Hey, thanks, John, for jumping on and saying hi to us. We did a great show with him not too long ago on the Commissioner Evaluation podcast with me, you, and him. So always good to see John. I saw John yesterday at the Scott Fishbowl live draft in Chicago we had yesterday. It was fantastic. And I was actually just going to say, I got sniped on Laporta. in the Scott
Oh,
Fish
man.
Bowl, and I was mad about it. He was the pick right before me. I'd already gotten Goff in the 5th round. It was coming back to me in the 7th. I was like, ooh, this might be a little early, but I'm going to get Laporta here. I love this stack, and he got taken right before me, and I was so mad I had to step out of the room for a minute. I was like, whoa, now what am I going to do? I was like, who am I going to pick now? Because he was my guy that round. I was eyeing. So a lot of times we talk about that 3 years it takes kind of those rookie tight ends to break out. I feel like Laporta's way ahead of the curve on that. And like I said, everything that they're talking about in camp is that he seems ready to go. He's not a guy that's going to need a lot of time to learn the system, try to figure it out. They said he was just tearing it up in OTAs. I feel like you said, no Jameson Williams, start the year. I think he could be shock a little people. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to get as far as straight statistics fantasy wise, but man, I think he's a guy who's going to have some impact on the game.
Yeah, definitely. Again, he's I'm super excited to see him on the field. I wish I could have gotten more exposure to him in my rookie drafts, but I was fortunate enough to get one share. But I can see it right now, that big waiver wire push after week 1 to get him, on your team. And I mean, who knows, maybe he could have an outlier, rookie season. I mean, it's only happened every so often, your Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram type seasons. Not saying that Laporta be the guy to do it, but I think if he did something close to that, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I feel like he could easily get 60 catches, 500-600 yards, and a handful of touchdowns. He just seems like he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to swing some weeks. Let's continue down the draft board, and another guy that everybody was talking about. Where is he going to go? And finally, in the 3rd round, he came off the board, number 68 overall, Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker. This was a guy people were talking about left and right. I mean, people were saying, hey, he would have won the Heisman if he didn't end up getting hurt at Tennessee and tearing his ACL. And then another thing that says, everybody said, would he been in that conversation to be a top 5 QB, top 5 or 10 pick in the NFL draft if he hadn't had the ACL injury? No, he's a little bit older, but we've seen kind of that hasn't made as big of a difference lately with quarterbacks, with the length of their careers kind of spanning a little bit longer. What do you think about Hendon Hooker? Is they just taking a shot on him? Do we actually think that he could be the future behind Jared Goff here in a couple of years for the Lions?
First off, I like to say, going into the draft, I had tweeted out the Lions as being a destination I would like to see Hendon Hooker land, because he will be put in a position where he won't get thrown out there right away. Then that's something that is kind of a lost art in today's NFL. You don't have the luxury of being able to sit 2-3 years behind a good to great quarterback. The last really, I'll say, notable person who was able to do that was Patrick Mahomes for that 1 year, when he came out. So, being, him tearing his ACL, just give him time to learn the playbook, learn from Jared Goff, pick his brain, kind of see, what worked, what doesn't work. And then you got Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, one of the hottest OCs in NFL right now, to learn from as well. So I thought Hendon Hooker was like one of my favorite, value quarterbacks to come out. Not saying he would have the highest trajectory to succeed out of the quarterback class, but I did like his metrics, how he fared compared to the quarterback class that he's a part of, going into this season. So it's definitely possible that Hendon Hooker could be the future for the Lions. This is a very important year for Jared Goff in regards to his contract situation. It's a lot riding on the season for him and for the team, because we got playoff aspirations as a team. And if he propels us to that place we haven't been in the last few years, like I alluded to, then chances are, Jared Goff will probably get a new deal, and Hendon Hooker just to be, holding the clipboard and just being our QB2 on the team. But on the other hand, if Goff were to regress and not do as well, and we don't win the division, we don't, clinch a wild card spot, and, Hendon Hooker began to make progressions as the season is going along, next off season, we could be having a serious conversation about whether the Lions want to give Jared Goff whatever contract demands he's asking for, or should we just take our chances with Hendon Hooker and build around him and see what we got. So it's kind of twofold when it comes to Hendon Hooker. While I like the selection by the Lions, it's great draft value in the third round because, like I said, either scenario that plays out, I think the Lions, turns out to be the winner at the end of the day. It was just good process on Brad Holmes being able to see a talent like Hendon Hooker still there in the third round.
Yeah, I actually loved it. People talked about them. Do they grab him like into the first? They maybe take him beginning of the second, try to grab someone there. I thought the fact that they kind of just let him simmer and then he kind of fell to him in the third, I thought was just fantastic. Again, we talk about value. I just thought that was a great move for them. Obviously, third round picks are valuable picks, but letting him get to you in the third where you're not feeling like you're stuck, like, oh man, we took this guy at the end of the first. We got to figure out a way to play him. I agree with you. I like the value there. I like that they waited till to get him in the third. And then a lot of times with these rookie QBs, the death nails or offenses are terrible. And so you get these guys in there and just ruins their confidence. Not the case with the Lions. The Lions, a top 5 scoring team in the league last year with over almost 27 points a game. So this is a team that knows how to score. And I think the fact that you can get him in there, let him sit at least this first year minimum, heal up, but also learn the intricacies of the system and go, hey, it's not like he's learning a bad system. So that's the other thing too. It's not like he's sitting on a team where, oh, this OC is going to get fired. So he's going to be gone next year anyway, and he's going to have a new guy he's going to have to learn all over again. I just think it ended up being a good situation for the Lions and for Hendon Hooker in general. I just think it was maybe couldn't have ended up in a better landing spot for him to kind of sit and learn and kind of figure things out. And again, if he does take over, he's got good players around him. It's not like he's taken over a bad team or a bad offense. So I just think for the future for Hendon Hooker, if it works out, I think they're going to look back and like, man, what a great freaking pick that was in the third. And if it doesn't, it's not a franchise, murdering selection where if they would have taken him top 10, top 12, and he doesn't work out, you're like, well, we just put our whole franchise back 2 or 3 or 4 years. So I thought it worked out pretty well there. Like you said, I just thought it was a good move. And again, I liked what the Lions did in this draft. Again, they probably didn't get the value everybody thought or where the players should go technically, per rankings. But man, they got guys, high-end guys at every position they took. Kind of finishing up the draft. Last couple guys they took, another third rounder, defensive tackle, Broderick Martin, added that D-line. And then came back in the 5th round, Colby Sorsdahl, offensive lineman. And then part of that DeAndre Swift trade, they got an extra 7th rounder where they went out and got Antoine Green, a wide receiver rookie that could fare into the mix here at these OTAs. And once we'll see what he gets in camp. But I thought it was a pretty solid draft for the Lions. And again, draft always brings hope, but I think it brings more hope when you're the Lions this year, when you saw the quality of guys you got and you add them to a team that's in the mix already. And then you got the Aaron Rodgers factor. He's gone. People are loving the Lions, man. They're right now favored to win the NFC North, plus 145, I think is what they are currently on FanDuel to win the division. So they're out there. Over-unders 9.5. I'm like, what are you thinking this as you look kind of down the schedule, things about the Lions, you're thinking division? Obviously, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but I don't know if the hype's if they're overhyped. I actually think this might be a legit chance for the Lions to make some noise.
Yeah, it's interesting because that NFC North division as a whole is kind of in transition with, like you said, Aaron Rodgers kind of having a stranglehold on the division for so long, being in Green Bay. Now that he's gone, it kind of just makes the division wide open. And going into this season, I definitely like our chances against Minnesota, Green Bay, and Chicago. We've always, at least the last couple of years, matched up pretty well against Minnesota. And we won 5 of our 6 division games last year. Not to say that that'll be repeatable this year, but the possibility is there. But I can see us winning 10, 11 games as everything went right for the team. If injuries are kept to a minimum and everybody do what they're supposed to do, we should be able to get our first division title for the first time in almost 30 years.
Yeah, I think that'd be unbelievable. Like, just break it down the schedule. We'll just kind of run through it here. I think the schedule really kind of lines up pretty well for the Lions, even if they regress in the division and they don't have that 5-1 division record. But even if they split with everybody in the division, looking at the rest of their schedule, I think this team's a 10-7, 11-16, and I think it's going to be a close division. I've got them winning the division. Actually, they were my NFC North pick. I've got them winning the division with the Vikings and the Bears just slightly behind them. And if we look at this team last year, or just this division last year, the defense was terrible. I mean, the defense was really bad. The Lions, the Vikings, the Bears, all in the bottom half of the league. I think the Packers clear cut have the best defense in this division, but without Aaron Rodgers, do they have the worst offense? Because the Lions had a really good offense. The Vikings had a really good offense. The Bears at the end of the year really started to turn it up with Justin Fields running everywhere. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, because I think you're going to see a lot of shootouts. And I had a bunch of Packers fans riding me hard because I had them with a terrible record this year. And people were just like, I can't believe you think they're going to be that bad. And I think they can win games, but I'm worried because I think they're going to have to win a lot of low scoring games. I just don't see that Packers offense putting up a ton of points. And I do think they have the best defense in the division. But again, that now means they're going to have to score enough on offense to keep up with these high-powered offenses in the Lions and Vikings. I think that works out to the Lions' favor, because I think they maybe more than anyone else improve the most on defense. So while they still added some nice offensive pieces, I think they added enough defense just to slow down. Are they going to be top half the league? Probably not, but I don't know if they need to be top half. If they get a top 5 scoring offense again, if they can just get a few more stops, a couple more field goals instead of touchdowns, I think this team could definitely go, like I said, 10-7, 11-6.
Yeah, you make a good point there. Even if, let's just say their offense is, instead of top 5, it's top 10, but their defense can be top 20. I think that'd be enough to offset, the regression from offense to get an extra win to get to 10, potentially 11 wins to secure the division. Because, we got to understand that, in the NFL, the year-to-year changeover is very real. No 2 years are the same. There's a lot of moving parts happening around the league annually. So, you have to kind of keep that in the back of our mind so we don't get too, caught up with overly optimistic expectations for a team in general, yet alone the Lions. So I'm definitely trying to be as impartial and unbiased as I can when it comes to like how I think the season will actually play out for them. But I do believe that they will do enough to win a division and hopefully make some noise come playoff time.
Yeah, like you said, they were 28th in the league in scoring defense last year, 25 points a game, over 25 a game. So again, if they can just improve that a little bit, move up 7-8 slots, like you said, even if they go down a little bit on offense, more winnable games. I just going through the schedule here, like I talked about, I just think the schedule really lines up nicely for them. They get a lot of winnable games at home, and I think that makes a big difference. They start off, the big Thursday night season opener, defending champion Chiefs at Kansas City. That's
That's a big
obviously
one.
going to be a huge game. If they can play out, even if they lose that game, but if they're in it and they're looking exciting, I think you're going to get people all over them going the rest of the season. So then after that, they're at home against the Seahawks, which I think Seahawks are a good team, but having them at home is a big difference than playing at Seattle. So I
And
love
remember last year when Seattle was in Detroit, that game was a banger. That was one of the highest scoring games of the season. So, you could see fireworks again in that one.
Yeah, and I'm expecting that in a lot of their games this year. But then they get them at home. Then they get Atlanta at home, who I think is going to be improved. But again, that's nice. You get that game at home. Even like I said, I think even if they split the whole division, say they go 1-1 against every in the division, I like the way the rest of their schedule works out to where they can get the tiebreaker difference over anyone if they need to. I mean, they got Carolina at home, super winnable game. At Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay is going to struggle, I think, this year. So that's a winnable game on the road. At Baltimore is probably one of their toughest games on the year, going to Baltimore. But then you're at home for Vegas. I don't like the Raiders this year. I think that's a gimme win. Then a bye week. Then they're at the Chargers, which is going to be a
That's the
tough
one right there.
That one's
That's the game.
I think. And here's the thing: if they can win that game, if they can somehow beat. The Ravens are the Chargers on the road. I think that wins them the division. I agree. It ends up being the win that catapults them and gets them 11 wins or gets them 12 wins. Because I've got them on 11 wins, losing both those games. So if they can win one of those, I think it's huge. And that's me. Like I said, that's with me splitting the division. That's not with them maybe beating the Bears twice or maybe beating the Packers twice. That's if I had them going 1-1 against everybody. And then you like at New Orleans, that's a winnable game. That's going to be interesting in the dome, but that's a winnable game. You get Denver at home, another great setup. I think Denver's going to be a lot better, but again, playing them at home and not at Mile High in the winter, in the middle of the winter, is a huge advantage. And then you got Minnesota, at the Cowboys, and then home for Minnesota to finish up the year. If they've got a little bit of a lead with those last two of the last 3 weeks being Minnesota for the division, I mean, what about that? What if they go in and they end up winning at Minnesota, upsetting them there? There's a chance they could have the division locked up with 2 weeks to go and get themselves a little rest for the playoffs. I just like how this schedule sets up for the Lions. I just think they got a lot of, at Seattle, at Denver would be two really tough games. Getting those games at home is a huge advantage. And again, the other tough ones, I think, other than the Chiefs game to start the year, is that Chargers Baltimore Ravens game. If they can split those two, I feel really good about where they end up this year.
Yeah, definitely. And the beautiful thing about the Lions schedule for this season is that they only played 5 games outdoors, one of which will be in December. So they're going to be in a controlled environment for the majority of the season. So that should work in their favor because, they play in the dome. I mean, not saying they can't play outside, because they definitely won on the road outdoors last season as the most recent example. But to be able to play in a controlled environment, that's going to just help the Lions to be able to put their best foot forward, week in and week out.
Yeah, I always think whenever you have a high-powered offense, anytime you can get indoors or play in good weather, I just think it makes all the difference. Because those cold weather, dirty, muddy, rainy games, that's where you want that defense where you can just kind of lock people down. And you're right. If you're going through their schedule, they've got really offensive-friendly places they're playing most of the year. They're at Baltimore is in October, just before Halloween. But other than that, you're in Tampa Bay the week before that in October, which you'd rather be there in October than August or September. So you're melting. They got Green Bay earlier in the year, so that helps them out that they're playing. They get Green Bay. Yeah,
that's huge. That's huge.
Really, you look at the latest game they got outdoors is at Chicago in December. That's really it. After the outdoor Baltimore game in October, I mean, you're inside the rest of the way. I mean, I think that's just a big, big advantage for them. And I just like the way everything is setting up for the Lions. It just feels like fate that everything is finally going their way. Obviously, we'll jump into it briefly. The Jameson Williams suspension and some of the other things, so the gambling things, is kind of been the one downer on this team. We haven't really talked about Jameson. What's up, little guy?
We're live, man. We're live.
So, what do you think about the James Williams situation? Do you think is this something that's going to kind of hang over his head, or you think this is something maybe he learns from? He's able to work hard, put it behind him, and this is something that maybe is just later in his career, it's just a blip on the radar, as opposed to something that defines his career.
I would say it's definitely something that he will learn from. I mean, he's 22 years old, so he's going to make mistakes. That's just part of the growing up process when you're transitioning in life, and in particular from college to pro. So I'm kind of glad that he's kind of going through that now. So it's going to make him a better, not only person, but player on the field. He's been getting a lot of unnecessary criticism for some of the stuff that he's been doing off the field, but I think that the reps that he is putting in now with Jared Goff is going to be huge for when he comes back in week 7, because last year he was hurt, so he didn't have the opportunity to get those offseason reps in with Jared Goff, whereas now he's fully healthy, he's putting in the work. He's been doing work with Amon-Ra St. Brown. So for those, who think that J-Mo going to be a bust or anything like that, it's too early to make that call. I think it's unfair to make that judgment without really seeing a full season of what he can do on the field. So, but when he get on the field in week 7, that's going to change the whole dynamic of the Lions offense. You're talking about somebody who can burn you down the field. If defense is going to be scared to match up against him, because if they play too close to him, he's going to burn them. And if they play too, high down the field, you got players like Amon-Ra and Laporta who can beat you underneath. So I think that's kind of like, you can kind of look at him as like a luxury pick for the Lions, because we can maintain or hold it down, the first 6 weeks without him, because we got pretty much our foundation in place to be able to compete week in and week out. But, once he get on the field, man, it's going to be exciting times in Detroit.
Yeah, it's like they got a free extra first-round pick, with him sitting out last year, another year removed from that ACL. And we've kind of seen over time, historically, that second year really gives those guys a chance to bounce back and really improve. And I think the thing about him is, if he was going into a situation where there's a ton of guys in front of him, you might go like, how's he get back into the lineup? But, I'm not real scared of Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones, Khalif Raymond. I mean, those guys are all right players, but they don't have what Jameson Williams has. I think he comes in and I think he gets on the field right away. As soon as they get him on there, I think he gets in there and plays. And again, like you said, I think he just adds a whole nother dynamic to that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to list the guys you said as roster cloggers or anything like that. Those are professional athletes at the end of the day, but none of those guys have the talent of a Jameson Williams. Let's just be real about it. So like I said, we have enough able bodies to get us by until, J-Mo hits the field. And, once he hits the field, it's just going to present a whole new dynamic to what our offense currently look like at that point in the season.
Let's, we kind of briefly talked over about needing the defense to improve a little bit. Let's talk about some of their defensive guys, because they do have some talent on that side of the football. Obviously, the big name guy, Aiden Hutchinson, former top pick for the Lions, had a really solid rookie season, but he just feels like he's got breakout potential all over. He's got that 1 year under him. At the end of the season, the big shocker that people did not see coming was James Houston, former 6th-round pick last year, didn't see the field at all first half of the season. And then the guy came out and got 8 sacks in the last 7 games. He was all over the place on the other side. Him and Hutchinson together feel like that edge combo you need. And then add Campbell. When they added Campbell, he just jumped up IDP draft boards and rookie draft boards. Almost every draft I was in, he went either first or second to Will Anderson in drafts.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that everybody is calculating that he's going to have a big point for IDP season. So he's a guy I love. I think he's going to get a ton of tackles. I think he's going to be everywhere. And then, like I said, that secondary, which was really the eyesore last year. I mean, they just were getting burned everywhere, but they got so much better. And CJ Gardner-Johnson from Philadelphia. They picked up Cameron Sutton from Pittsburgh, who was really solid. Tracy Walker, who's been good in that secondary. Kirby Joseph, a 3rd-round pick last year, get another year for him. So he's going to be in his 2nd year. It just feels like they're kind of, and then, and we talked about Brian Branch earlier, who I think is going to be able to play in that spot. It just feels like that secondary is so much better than they were the year before.
Yeah, it's night and day better because it was definitely a high priority thing to address when the offseason got here because, in order for a team that's in transition like the Lions to view themselves as division contenders, you got to have a somewhat competent secondary. You just can't have, guys who's going to get beat every single play because that's going to exhaust the defense and it's going to force the offense to have to keep up with the opposition. So I'm definitely happy with the improvements that the Lions secondary is now because, like you said, it was an eyesore on the team last year. And even with the moves that we made, you still got people out here thinking the Lions did getting better in the secondary, and that's just not the case. You got these guys that we got, these dudes can play. It's just a matter of the chemistry coming together. That's what the off season is for. But once they get that chemistry down pat, you're going to see a noticeable difference in the secondary when teams are playing against them this year.
Yeah, I'm always one of those people. I'm really hesitant on some of these up-and-coming teams to kind of get behind them. Everybody gets all hyped. Oh, they're going to win the division. They're going to win the division. And you're like, hey, we haven't seen it forever. Why would anything change now? But this is one of the teams I feel differently about. I actually feel like this Lions team is legit. I feel like they've got a good coaching staff. They're super likable. I mean, they're a super likable team. I love their uniforms. I think they got some of the best unis in the game. My mom's family's all from Michigan, so I've got a little, deep down, little soft spot for the Lions. I always want to see them kind of do well. Barry Sanders, loved him as a kid, so I was always kind of rooting for the Lions. So kind of tell me your final thoughts here on the Lions. They're a team I like. I like them to win the division. I'm actually going with the favorite. I'm taking them to win the division. I think their defense has improved enough, and I like what I'm seeing on offense. I think, Gibbs is a good spot. I like the Monty signing. I actually think Monty's still, people are like, is he fantasy relevant anymore? I think he's going to get the rock. I think they're going to be able to use both those guys. They're going to be playable. I like this team. I like the over 9.5 wins. I feel like they can get 10, 11. I think, and a couple things go their way, I think they could get as high as 12. So I'm loving that over 9.5. I feel good about the Lions. Tell me from your perspective, kind of as a fan going into this season to wrap it up, what are your feelings on this team overall?
First, I'd like to say I love that the fact the NFL is finally, showing the Lions some love. They got us on prime time, I believe, for 5 games this year. So that tells me right there that the Lions is doing something right. But then, of course, when you have Hard Knocks, that kind of gives us that exposure that people who, don't follow the team can see what the Lions is all about. And that's really made them become very likable, with Jamal Williams, who's no longer with the team. He was such a character and leader for the team. It just kind of made the Lions as a team likable. But as far as heading into this season, everything that you pretty much said about the team, I kind of share that same sentiment. I recently put out the other day, as we get close to the season, that I like Miami to come out to represent the AFC side for the Super Bowl this year. Now, NFC side, I really want to put my finger on Detroit as that team. Some people may say it's a homer pick, but I'm looking at the NFC conference as a whole. It's pretty much wide open. Of course, you got Philly, San Francisco, Dallas, but those teams underwent changes as well. Philly lost their top two coordinators on both sides of the ball. What is that going to look like for them? Dallas lost Kellen Moore, which I feel like is an underrated loss for that team. And you got Mike McCarthy, excuse me, calling the plays. So I'm a little nervous about that. And, San Francisco with the quarterback situation, is it Brock Purdy? Is it Trey Lance? Is it, Sam Darnold? So I feel like if the Lions make it to the playoffs, I think they got as good a chance as anybody to come out that NFC conference. So I'm still kind of wrestling with which way I'm gonna lean on the NFC side, who I like to come out to go to the Super Bowl, but that inkling, that gut feeling of the, it's kind of like when Cincinnati went on that run a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Nobody had picked them going into the season as a contender, yet alone make the Super Bowl. I'm kind of having that feeling about the Lions, but like I said, I love what they're doing. I love the direction that they're going in. They're pretty close to being balanced on both sides of the ball. We could still use a few more pieces on that defensive line to kind of make it a little bit more solidified. But I believe, the team that is currently constructed as it is today is good enough to make some noise in NFC for this year.
Yeah, actually, if you look down, I just pulled up the FanDuel's Super Bowl odds right now. Technically, the Lions are 9th overall at plus 2,200, but in the NFC, they're 4th. Eagles are 1st, Niners are 2nd in NFC, Cowboys are 3rd, and Lions are 4th. And would you be surprised that the Vikings are 5th, but they're actually like 6 spots behind the Lions in the NFC? So that shows you that not a lot of people thinking the NFC is as good as the AFC this year, but I think that leaves it wide open. There's so many spots in there, and then you had Miami in there. Miami's at plus 2,500 right now. They're, I think it looks like 10th, 11th, 12th. They're 12th right now, best odds to win it. So it's not like you're talking crazy talk. It's not like you're saying, oh, Lions, coming off a 2-3 win season, I think they have a Super Bowl chance. I think Vegas thinks they have a Super Bowl chance, pretty high up in the NFC. And once you get to those playoffs, you just kind of never know. And the interesting thing, I think, is, the NFC East is obviously really talented with the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Redskins, but that's a division that could beat each other up. And, when the Eagles have, while they have a ton of talent, like you said, lost the coordinators, they've got a pretty tough schedule. I think it really lines up for the Lions to maybe not only win the division, but get a home game. And then, can you imagine a home game, Lions playoffs? Man, Detroit will be rocking Ford Field.
Oh, man.
Losing their minds would be unreal. But I really think that this team, while we haven't seen in a long time, I think the hype actually is real for once. I do like what they've done, and I think they've set themselves up for the future. I don't feel like this is a one-and-done team. It doesn't feel like they went all in, like a Rams move to like, oh, we got to try to make the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. This feels like an actual long-term setup. I feel really good about where this Lions team's going.
Yeah, definitely. Brad Holmes has done a good job of working that salary cap. And since he's been GM, he's had the highest hit rate of any GM in the league at 80%. So that should tell you all you need to know about the direction that the Lions is going in. So I definitely loving what they're doing. I'm loving we got competent people in the front office who know how to run an organization, because you need everybody on every level doing their part in order for a franchise to succeed, not for now, but also for the future.
So it sounds like we're both pretty high on the Lions this year. I know a lot of people are too. So, hey, as a Lions fan, you got to be excited, got to be good. Breeze, let everybody know where they can find you, social media, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MCBreeze11, posting content for P2W Fantasy. I also put out random stuff on Twitter, relating to fantasy football, relating to life, whatever the case, but whatever I'm feeling at that particular time of the day. But that's where you can find me. If you have any questions or need to reach out to me about anything, my DMs are open. Be more than happy to chat with you. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. You can find me at JT Orange on Twitter, talking a little bit about anything fantasy football wise. I do everything from IDP to Devi to CFF to C2C, a little bit of everything. So also you can follow the show at JT Brew Stew on Twitter. Check us out on the YouTube channel, dynastyprosfootball.com, our YouTube channel. You can find me out there. And then you can always find my articles, mostly IDP stuff, but I've got some risers and fallers and Colts and Steelers articles coming out on DLF. So go ahead and check out dynastyleaguefootball.com. I've also got my IDP rankings up there. So if you're getting ready to draft for the season, I've got those. Check those out as well. Again, Commissioner Breeze, thanks for joining me. Had a great time. Thanks, everybody, for watching the Stew. Check you next time.
You up on trades and why you move? You ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop